everything is recording, and sync up the clap. Hello, my name's Joe Allam. I'm an independent creative. I specialise in photography, design and web development, and today I've got a video to show how I edit one of my photos. So this is something that's been requested by quite a lot of people who've commented and sent me messages on Twitter and things like that. First of all, thank you to everyone who has commented on my videos and all the people who've subscribed. My channel is very new, so I'm kind of just getting started on a lot of things, but this year I am looking to grow it, and it really means a lot to all the people who do subscribe to me. So it means a lot to me for all the people who subscribe. Hopefully it means a lot to them as well, but yeah. So this is one from my recent trip to Tokyo. I went there at the end of November, and I'm still working on a load of photos and videos and things like that, so make sure to keep a lookout for that new video. I'm about a third of the way, halfway through the main edit of it, so subscribe to my channel and you can get notified when it's there, or follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I'll be posting about it across there. All the links are in the description and everything like that. Okay, so I'm going to edit this photo now, and you can follow me along in Aperture and Photoshop on here. Okay, so I've now just switched to the small camera that I've got here. So this is the small Canon G7 X, which I actually picked up in Tokyo. I've just got to put my glasses on because eyes don't really work that well on displays. So I have already made a video of how I do my workflow through Aperture, of where I import my photos, go through and rate them, and then choose which ones I'd like to edit. So make sure to check that video out on my channel, and I'll continue right through now from the process of where I actually edit the photo. So if we open up Aperture here, and I'm already at the section of photos that I've got rated for Tokyo. The one that I'm going to go through today is this one here. So if I just right click, edit with Photoshop, so I've got that set as my external editor. This is a raw photo, so the first thing I want to do is change my background, and I'm just going to label it as original. So this is now my original layer, and I'm not going to do any adjustments to this layer. So I'm going to preserve this so that I can see a before and after as I go through, and it's not destructive. So I'm going to duplicate this layer, just Command J, and I'm going to label this one raw. And straight away we're going to go into the Camera Raw filter. So this is Adobe Camera Raw. Sometimes you'll get this dialog appear if you imported a RAW straight into Photoshop rather than going through Aperture. You generally just go through the sliders, make your adjustments. You can save these presets and stuff, but I'm not going to go too much in detail with this. I'm just going to show you a very quick run through of what I like to do. So I can adjust the temperature, either from a colder to a warmer, and for this image I'm kind of feeling like I do want to bring out that warmth. So this is just before sunset, so it's around 4 or 5 p.m. and you can see that we've got this glow in the background, so I do want to kind of accentuate that, and I like the glow on the buildings as well, so I generally want to make this a little bit warmer. And the exposure is pretty good already, but it could do with being just a tad brighter, so I'm only going to bring it up a little bit. Contrast, again, I only like to do just a little bit because I like to do my my contrast with curves layers rather than Camera Raw. I don't like to do too much in Camera Raw because it's a little bit destructive when you come back and you can't re-edit the things as much. So just bump up the contrast just slightly. Highlights, you can see if I move it up and down, it's not really doing too much with the buildings, it's more about the sky, and as I said, I wanted to bring out that glowness for the background, so I'm just going to drop the highlights down slightly. I can raise the shadows up, and that's going to kind of raise up the foreground with the buildings, so you can see like in the area with the trees and around some of these dark areas where buildings are causing shadows. Just raise up the shadows. And again, this is just the features for a RAW photo, so you got so much data in a RAW file compared to a regular JPEG. And then the whites, just make slight adjustments, not doing too much. Again, the blacks, just going to bring them up slightly. So clarity is a bit like contrast and sharpness mixed in one. So you can just raise it a little bit. Vibrance, very similar to saturation. If we went crazy, you'd see the color vibrance, you know, a bit too much, but we want to bring it back and only do a slight amount. I don't like to do too much color variation in Camera Raw. I prefer to do that within Photoshop's other tools. And again, with saturation, very small amount. And then finally in Camera Raw, the only other thing I'll really do is sharpening. So if we just zoom in a bit, so we've got, this is at, let's go back, so this is 100%. So I just want to sharpen the image. You can see what it's doing if I go from like 50% to back down to 0. So I just want to sharpen it about, I'm going to do like 20 something, late 20s, 27. The radius is the size of the pixels, like how much around the pixels, so if it's like a 1 pixel radius or 1.2, something like that. It just shows how much you're actually affecting. Bring in the detail. And then we've got noise reduction, so you can see that because this is a raw file, there's been no noise compensation made in the camera itself, so we need to do that in Photoshop. So it's going to raise up the luminance. You can see particularly in this area, let's just zoom in a bit, if I went back to 0, you can see how noisy that is, and then as I bring up the slider, Photoshop is just correcting that for me. And the detail. And every photo is going to be different, so you can just adjust these per photo. And generally what I like to do is slide things up and then just bring it back and see what effect is happening. Okay. And we can just zoom out. So you got this button down here in the bottom right, or you can press Q on the keyboard, and what that will do is it will toggle through all of the different views. So we can see a before and after. So on the left we've got before, after. Just zoom out a bit. So you can see that I've warmed up the image. There's a bit more vibrancy, a little bit more brightness, but it's not a great deal of edits yet, because that's where we're going to come in on Photoshop's main features. But I'm happy with this, so I'm just going to click OK. So now we've got our raw layer here. What I like to do first, across most of my photos, is a curves layer. So I generally use curves for pretty much everything. A lot of my edits involve curves for brightness control, color correction, contrast, fades, and things like that. Curves are one of the most powerful adjustments you can do. If you're kind of new to curves, then leave me a comment and I'll make a video that kind of details curves a little bit in more detail, but I'm going to assume that the majority of people have had some experience with curves, so I'm just going to go straight into it. At this point I'm going to bring out my Wacom tablet, so I like to use a pen to make adjustments. You don't have to do this. For about 6 years I used just a trackpad, and then I used a mouse as well, so you can go through your edits with other tools, but for me now, with my desk space, I like to use a Wacom tablet. So I've got my Wacom tablet out now. I'm just going to use the pen, and it's essentially just replacing my cursor. Okay, so I'm now using the pen as my cursor. And we've got our curves adjustment here. So we've got our layer, and I'm just going to do what I like to call normalizing. So this is kind of like the first pass at curves, where I'm just normalizing things out and getting my colors at a base level before I start doing any sort of like artistic color control. So I'm just going to adjust the shadows. You can see it's very sensitive as I bring this dark detail down and up, and then up to the highlights. And you could start off with a very basic minimal S curve, which is generally a contrast curve. So as you're raising the highlights, darkening the shadows, and you adjust your midpoint for where you really want things to go. So this is one of the most common curve adjustments you can make. It's known as the S because of the shape it makes. So I'm happy with that. I'm just going to go into my reds. So this image already has quite a lot of red into it, which kind of brings in the warmth. And I want to retain a lot of that. And I can see that there's a bit of a green cast across the image, so I'm going to reduce that, but I'm also going to increase the blue. So it's going to reduce the green, and you see the image is kind of going purpley, but that's okay. So it's going to reduce the green a little bit, not too much. So it's very sensitive, it's very small amounts. And then the blue, so again, bringing the blue shadows down because I want the warmth in the building. So generally the blues are all the dark areas in the image. So I'm going to keep the warmth in the buildings. I'm going to raise it up because I like the coolness in the sky. And just adjust your midpoint. You find a place where you're happy. You can just hold this area here and you can see your before and after, how it affected and things like that. So I can see I've put a little bit too much green in there. So let's just take the green out slightly. And go back to the RGB and then it's just brightening that ever so slightly. Just like that. So you can see that was before, this is now after. Okay. So I'm just going to rename this. So this is my normalize. And now I'm going to do a secondary curves, and this is going to be just about the color. So I'm only going to be adjusting how the reds, greens and blues look. So I'm going to change the layer blending mode to color. Just because I'm only adjusting the color, I don't need to affect the brightness or the contrast or anything like that. So we can go straight into the red channel. Now, I've always liked the cross-process style of imagery, which is it's an old term for when you'd process film negatives in the chemicals that are used for slides. So you kind of get that off-color yellowy blue tinge across things. And the way that you do that is you kind of just do your standard S curves on your red and your green. When it comes to the blue, you reverse it. So you actually bring down the highlights in the blue and raise the blue shadows, and that's how you get that blue tint. It's kind of a bit of a signature style across most of my photos. A lot of people recognize that bluey yellow cast across things. You can see I'm just adjusting this now. So it's ever so subtle, but you can hold down the before and after and you can see where you've got with things. And what I like to do as I'm editing a photo is I like to see the very beginning to where I'm currently at. And the way that I'll do that is by holding down the Option key or the Alt key and then clicking on the one layer that you want to preview. So that's my original. And you see what it does is it selects only the one layer. So this is what the very original was out of the camera. And then this is where I'm at right now. So I'm pretty happy with this. I'm going to rename this Color Curves. Okay. So this is kind of like a very simple basic process that I'd use for most of my photos. Generally a lot of my photos I could spend a good few hours on, so this is a very quick run through of the overall, so I'm not really going into the fine details of things. But another thing that I like to do, which is a kind of a little secret trick of mine, is use a gradient map. So what a gradient map does is it, if you imagine a gradient of colors, so you got one end is, in this case right now, is red, the other end is white. It's going to apply the red to all of your shadows. As the shadows turn to midtones and then to highlights, that's going to go to the other end of the gradient. So depending on what colors you have in that gradient, you could apply it to all of the different tones within your photo. So yeah, if it's one end, you might have green through to a purple, then all your shadows will be green. As they go into highlights, all your highlights become purple. So I've got a few gradient maps that I've saved previously. So this allows me to keep a consistent style across all of my photos pretty much. So I've got a few that I've created here. So this is kind of like a blue into a yellow. Again, just bringing those bluey yellow tones across with me. We've got a purple into a yellow. We've got like a dark blue into a yellow. So I'm just going to choose one of these, and then what you want to do is you want to bring the fill down to about 20% or so. Possibly even 10. Again, it's very subtle, but it makes a difference. And then we can go back and choose other ones. So I'll just show you how some of the others look. So this was that red to white. We've got like a brown to a yellowy. Kind of brings out the golden tones in a colour. I generally like this. I use this one quite a lot. So it's just a couple of shades here it goes from. If we turn this on and off, you can see the effect it's having. So it's kind of cooling out the photo a little bit. I'm going to leave this at 10% fill. And what I'm going to do now is another curve. So it has darkened the image a bit, so I'm just going to use the curves to brighten it up. Mainly on the foreground area. You can see the buildings are kind of brightened up. And by raising the highlights just a tad more, you kind of retain that contrast on the edges of the buildings, like so. But I don't necessarily want this to affect the sky. So I've got my mask here, so I'm just going to paint out the sky. This is where having a Wacom tablet really does help, because the pen allows you to paint fluidly. So I'm just going to paint black onto my mask. At the moment my opacity is pretty high, I'm at 80%. I'm going to drop it down to about 30 or 20, and my flow is at 60. So it's not a consistent flow, which means it is not too neat of a finish. So I'm just painting across here. You can generally start to see it's removing the effects of what that last curves adjustment did. Okay. So if I hold shift and click on the mask, you see it disables and enables that mask, so I can see what it's reduced and what it's allowed. I can do this on all my previous adjustments to see if there's anything that I might have missed. I'm going to do it on the colour curves. It's going to reduce out what it's doing on the sky, because I like the original colour of the sky. Okay. Cool. So we've got all our colours going on here. Bring that out just like that. So I'm going to rename this to foreground curves, and let's just do one more curves. This time I'm going to look mainly to the sky, so ignore the fact that this is darkening out the foreground and look more towards the sky, and you'll see that I'm just bringing in some of that vibrancy. Let's just increase the reds a little bit. Okay, so can toggle before and after, and only look to the sky, so I'm going to mask out the foreground areas. So again, we've got my pen, and I'm on the brush tool, and I'm just going to mask off the foreground, bring my opacity up to 60. You can see I'm just painting back in the previous areas. Let's drop the opacity back down to 30 as we get close to the edge. We don't want too much of a stark contrast, otherwise it's a bit obvious how this has been edited. Okay. If I hold Option and click on the mask itself, you'll see how the mask looks, so I can just finish it off with areas that I've clearly missed. Alright. And click back onto the visibility icon, and there we go. So this is now the sky darken curves. Let's look back at the original. So that's how it was originally out of camera, and this is how the edit has gone so far. And there's just one final colour adjustment I like to make, again with the curves. And I like to add a bit of a fade to the images. So that's where you kind of you reduce the amount of blacks in the black. So you kind of make all of the blacks more like a dark grey, and it produces this nice soft fade. I really like this style, and it's something that you kind of get out of old film stock, depending on the brand of film that you had and how it's processed. So the way that we'll do that is we'll just mark a few points on the curves, just to keep it in the standard 45-degree line, and we'll bring up this blacks. And if I accentuate that a little bit, you'll see what happens. So we start to lose detail in the blacks, particularly if you look around in the trees. Let's just zoom in on that. So you see that as I lower it back to normal, that's how it is. If I bring it up, you start to lose all that detail in the black, so you don't want to do it too much. But you'll also notice that it kind of gives this nice smoky effect, which I absolutely love. You can overdo it, so be careful on that. And generally what you want to do is you kind of set where you're happy and then reduce it back just a little bit, because chances are your eyes are kind of going to be a bit excited and you're going to overdo it, and then you'll finish your photo, you'll print it or you'll share it, and then the following day you'll look at it and you'll think, oh, I did that way too much. So you kind of just do this, and I'm pretty happy with this, how it is right now. And if we look at the before and after, you see it's only slightly made an adjustment, but I really love that effect. It kind of softens areas, so particularly around the buildings and the shadows. So it reduces the contrast, but it maintains that vibrancy. Possibly bring up the highlights. Just like that. So that's kind of all that I want to do for colours and everything. And that's basically a very quick run through of all of the colour adjustments I would make. Of course there are other things that I can do for the image itself, so one thing I would definitely like to do is so I just want to straighten out the horizon. So if I go to my ruler tool here, if I draw it along here, you can see that horizon is not very straight at all. If we just go to image rotation, arbitrary, and that will take the data that you've put in for this ruler line, and it will allow you to rotate it to the degree that would make it straight. So it's automatically set it as 0.49 counterclockwise. Okay, you can see that I'll now adjust my image like this, and all that I need to do is just crop off these areas. So let's go to our crop tool. Oh, let's make sure, yeah. So let's keep our resolution dimensions as they were originally. I'm just going to bring this crop in. So we cropped off that area, and now the image is straight. And I can also see there's an area of a reflection. So this was taken through a window, and you can see over here there's a reflection. I think it's the emergency escape sign. Yeah, it's the emergency exit sign, or the fire escape sign. So I'm just going to duplicate my layer and call it healing. I'm just going to bring out my healing brush, and I'm just going to paint over that area just to clone it off a little bit. And there we have it. So this was the original raw file, and after all the edits, here is how it's turned out. You'll probably want to check this photo out on my blog as a standard image, because when it's in the video there's probably some compression and you probably won't be able to see the colours as correctly as I've edited it. So make sure to follow the link to my blog and take a look at it there. So that is generally it for editing this photo. So that's a process that I'll apply to the majority of my photos. As I said before, sometimes I could spend, you know, a good few hours just fine-tuning all the details, making sure it's consistent with various other photos of the same event, and just keeping a coherent image style. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content. If you felt that there were some areas that I maybe went through a bit fast, then leave a comment and I'll make sure to do some smaller videos on some of the smaller adjustments that are made throughout my photos. I've got plenty of other tips and stuff that I'm planning to release, so make sure to stay up to date. You can of course follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and also check out my blog. I recently did a post of my favourite photos throughout 2014, so I've got all things going at the moment. There's a lot just happening. I'm literally just blasting it all out right now, and this year I really want to grow my online presence, so it really means a lot for everything that people are saying, and yeah, I hope this can grow into becoming something that's very useful for a lot of people. So this is me finishing up, and I will see you guys later. Alright, bye bye. I think I'm done.